I think we have to back up because, I hear you, right? The ROEs are increasing, but I don't think it matters at all what peak ROEs are. And that's where we are right now. What really matters is what the ROEs are through a cycle. And we always tend to talk about these peak ROEs, but of course the industry hasn't made money through a cycle in a long time. And, Merrill Lynch, which, I had the responsibility to run as it was coming out of the crisis, the wealth management business, was earning double-digit, teens ROEs, but then they wiped out 50 quarters of earnings in one quarter, right? And back when I was a research analyst back in the day, you remember the day,
Stanford,
right?
Yeah. The last honest research analyst on Wall Street.
You remember that,
yeah.
But I actually published a research report that was, sort of smart. Which was don't confuse upside volatility with growth, right? And you have to sort of see these things through a cycle before you really know where they stand.
I mean, I initially thought, and we'll get into some of your other comments about diversity. I mean, at Citigroup, you had Chuck Prince dancing until the chairs. That was like the worst thing there. And then Stan O'Neill, envious of everyone else leveraging up on those products. And so you watch powerful men, essentially. Yeah. Do you think put their firms at risk when a woman might not? I mean,
but back up, right? So we tend to personalize it to the CEO, but when you actually look at these leadership teams, we could have used more cognitive diversity. We could have used more folks, at these big banks saying, wait a second, you remember at Citi, the super seniors with the, liquidity puts. Wait a second, are these liquidity puts, what do they do it really doing for us?
How do you find cognitive diversity? How do you find, how do you get away from groupthink?
Well, you have to hire diversity. You have to hire diversity of background, experience, education.
Gender.
Skin color, gender. And so the research shows us that gender-diverse companies tend to outperform companies with higher ROEs, lower risk, greater innovation.
I think what you're talking about is just somebody who can say the emperor's wearing no clothes, right? You're not necessarily groomed in this environment. You can walk in and say, that doesn't make any sense.
You know what I think it is, Becky? I think it's not only you can say it, but you've got a different background so that you see it. I remember Marge Magner at Citi saying, why are these CDOs good for clients, right? And when you have entire leadership teams that went to the same schools and were brought up in the same neighborhoods and had the same training, frankly, if we're going to call a spade, people get embarrassed to say, I don't understand, right?
Right.
I just don't get it. I don't understand why we're on this train, and you need people of difference to step in and say, wait a minute. But the industry, just as we've had an increasing wealth disparity in this country, so the industry for some period of time went backwards on all kinds of diversity.
Was your point at the top that ROEs are at peak levels at the moment and that we're heading for some kind of similar outcome?
Well, look, can they go up a bit more? Sure, they can go up a bit more, but we all know we're going to hit another recession. We hope we don't hit another crisis, but I think we need to see a full cycle before we can say what the true earnings capacity and return capacity of these organizations is.
But at the level of capital that we see today, is that enough to protect the banks from a repeat of the last crisis, or is the issue that we don't know what the next crisis is going to be?
Anybody who says they know doesn't know, right? So these banks have certainly gone from 40-to-1 types of leverage to 10-to-1 types of leverage, and their funding is more stable. But what does 10-to-1 leverage mean? It means that if assets go down by 10%, you're wiped out. So if assets go down by 5, 6, 7%, you're in a panic. And deposits are more stable than overnight funding. But we've all seen a bank run, right? So they're certainly more safe. The question we'll end up answering at some point is, are they safe enough?